he's at serious risk of a serious catastrophic spinal injury if he plays on. In fact, I don't think there's any serious other option but to retire forthwith from football.
Well, mate, look, I'm still in shock. I was in shock when it happened. Just totally numb. It's a shame it's finished like this, but it had to finish sometime.
There are players who play the game, and then there are ones who become it. Andrew Johns wasn't just a halfback. He was the halfback. A player who could turn chaos into control, who could make a stadium of 40,000 feel like it was just him and the ball. He wasn't supposed to be human. He was supposed to last forever. But in 2007, it all stopped. Not because he was done, but because his body gave out before his heart ever could. The game moved on, but the question never did. What if Andrew Johns never retired? What if the King of Newcastle got one more season? One more chance to show us why he's the greatest that ever did it? Well, today, we find out. In order to achieve this, we had to take it all the way back to 2003, the first game that Joey Johns was actually in, the first rugby game. We had to win a premiership in this naturally because he was still technically playing back here. So up against Stacey Jones' Warriors, it was no surprise that Joey Johns and his Novocastrians would easily win the premiership from Rugby 03. But now the real test stood in our way. Obviously for this video, Joey Johns is going to run all the way through to 2025, something that probably wouldn't have happened in real life regardless of the injury or not. But in 2012, the grand final saw us take on the Sydney Roosters, and it wasn't going to be an easy battle. However, in what was going to be his prime years from 2010 through to 2015, Joey would absolutely control the field and get the job done for the Newcastle Knights. Which means once again it was time to fast forward and take on a different game. In 2015, the NRL had some of the best rosters we'd ever seen, and obviously the Broncos and Cowboys were going to be a threat. But Joey, still being in his prime years, would get Captain of the Year and top point scorer to help the Novocastrians once again enter the finals. But it wasn't going to be easy because up first, they had to take on the Penrith Panthers. Before the dynasty, the Penrith Panthers would destroy the left side of the Newcastle Knights, consistently hitting holes and really testing out the defense of the fullback. They'd cross first through a short ball and some pretty slack defense and continue to light up that left side of the field. Jamie Soward's Penrith Panthers were not going to be easy to topple, and Joey knew he had an absolute mission ahead of him. But with the roster he had and the defensive grit they had, they knew they were up for the fight. Off the back of an insane run by Jeremy Smith, the lock forward of the year, they knew that this was chance for them to strike back. And strike back is exactly what they did. A two-pass play that saw their front rower Corbin Sims easily cross under the sticks meant this was going to be a 6-all game. Joey would convert from right in front, and suddenly it was ball game. The second half would be more of the same, with Newcastle running another crash play through Dane Gagai, their fullback, and easily scoring, with Joey given the chance almost right in front to take this out to a 6-point lead against a team that was going to be always hard to beat. And after converting that try, he'd produced some of the most insane Joey Johns magic we'd ever see. A 60-meter full field try against a completely helpless Penrith defense to absolutely seal the game and move them on to the next round of the finals. In an ironic twist of fate, he'd be up against what was soon to be his next teammates with Mitchell Pearce and Sean Kenny-Dow on the Roosters. However, led by Braithen Nasta, an ex-teammate in Origin level, this was also going to be a very, very hard challenge. Luckily, once again, the Knights were up for the challenge, and that crash play seemed to be something that they could just keep going back to. Corbin Sims would crash again first, taking a 6-0 lead, and that'd be all that was needed to get over the Sydney Roosters. A 6-point game isn't exactly thrilling, but a job is a job. We'll revisit the Mitchell Pearce and their history here a bit later on. It was time for the grand final. The Newcastle Knights, Joey's Newcastle Knights, up against Greg Inglis and Adam Reynolds from the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The Proven Summons trophy was there on display, and it was time for Joey to show us he could still get the job done with high competition. The Bunnies obviously did their research and watched the tape because they tore apart that left side of the field once again, just like Penrith did a few years earlier. And after two insanely close high ball situations where we got get out of jail free cards back to back, it was time for Newcastle to maybe hopefully put some offense together. But Joey knew he had to get the team running because it was running on empty at the moment, defending for nearly 20 minutes straight. A good little short ball would see Kurt Gidley hit a hole, but he was met by Greg Inglis, which was to be expected. However, the man touted the next Joey Johns would step up to the plate. Jared Mullen would kick a field goal, only giving them a 1-0 lead. But if there was anything to go by with past history, we knew this to be a small point scoring game. And that's exactly what it would be, until a high ball from Jared Mullen would see the man himself, Joey Johns, outleap Greg Inglis and score the game-winning try, officially winning that championship and that ring for Newcastle once again, proving that if Joey hadn't retired early, he actually might have won a few more championships for the Novocastrians, and that would have made Newcastle fans over the moon. But we're not done yet. We've got the future to look for. For some reason, this game also included the 2018 rosters, so we ran it back with that, but we finished 10th, so it wasn't great. We ran another season to see how we could go, and we ended up playing in the finals at 8th against St George in our first matchup. This wasn't going to be easy as St George sat 5th on the roster, and they showed that pretty obviously with Kurt Mann breaking us easily from a scrum and scoring first points. We'd get our bite back though with Sean Kenny-Dow making a break down the sideline and bursting through the fullback to score. A hard conversion to come, but we would even it all up. Sean Kenny-Dow would once again tear down that left side, proving that he was actually very valuable and maybe learned something from the Joey loss earlier. Jamie Bureau would jump on a loose ball, giving us insane field position in Golden Point. 6 all, and all it would take was a short ball to get Jamie Bureau over and move on to the next round of the playoffs. Up against a young and hungry Manly side, it'd end up going to Golden Point, where unfortunately Daly Cherry Evans would put a field goal against us, and that would spell the end of this season with the Newcastle Knights. Was Joey maybe getting too old? What was next? With Andrew Johns now entering his senior years for the Newcastle Knights, 33 plus years of age, it was going to be hard for him to keep up with the modern day of NRL football, especially against all these super teams that are out there. But that absolutely was going to be a challenge for Joey that he was up to. As always, Joey stood up when the time mattered. But luckily for Joey, there was a plethora of young talent coming to Newcastle, where with his leadership, maybe they could see more premierships in the future, which would lead us into the 2025 season. We'd finished 7th, and that meant we had a long way ahead of us to get into the grand final. We were up against the Bulldogs in round 1, and off the back of some right place, right time brilliance from Dane Gagai to put us under the sticks and take a 6-0 lead, it'd be enough to get us through that victory and into the next round, which once again wasn't going to be easy. Seeing Kalen Ponga, Andrew Johns and the rest of the team go up to the Queensland Country Bank Stadium and play against the North Queensland Cowboys was going to be very difficult. Phoenix Crossan would put the team on his back and help us take a late lead against the Cowboys. Even with Joey missing the conversion, it would be enough to get the job done and push us into a preliminary final, but that was going to be the hardest task yet. We were faced with potentially the winners of 2025, the Brisbane Broncos. After Fletcher Sharp kicked an amazing ball and an uncharacteristic mistake from Reece Walsh, it gave us the best opportunity to really ice a lead. After giving us a penalty, it allowed Joey to kick a 2-point conversion and take a 2-point lead against a team that we knew we'd be in a scrap fight for. But at the end of regulation, the game would finish 2-0. Not really thrilling for fans, but over the moon for the Novocastrians and Joey Johns, who are now heading to another grand final in his senior years. This is what it all comes down to, boys. The grand final. Potentially Joey Johns' last game of his career. And he's up against the Penrith Dynasty. It was never going to be easy. A high ball. Greg Marzu's underneath it. It's taken by Dylan Edwards as the try. It's a lovely try, targeting the weak spot of the Newcastle Knights. Greg Marzu under the high ball. That's a good try, and it's going to be 6-0 to Newcastle early on in the game. Dylan Edwards is having an unreal performance so far. We're only 13 minutes into the game and he's playing phenomenally. Great against the Broncos in real life. Oh, big kick return, Dom Young. Still runs him down. Wow. Honestly, in real life, I think Dom Young's gone there. I think that's a try, but it's a good kick return. Quick play, the ball's nice too. Joey knows it. It's a forward pass from Fletcher Sharp. God, it looked lovely too. It's an inside ball, but unfortunately the inside ball was forward. It's going to go straight to KP. He's going to let it bounce. My God, that's a coach killer. It's lucky it's taken and it will be a dropout, but Kalen Ponga just let the ball bounce on the in goal. You got to get below him. No one helped Phoenix Crosland out, and it's a try to Brad Schneider. It's possibly the worst animation in Rugby League 26, but it's going to be a try. Kalen Ponga, ball watching. It's going to be a 12-0 lead to Penrith at halftime. It's a great ball. Joey Johns can't break the tackle, though. Isaiah Yeo, wow. It's not actually Isaiah Yeo, it's Liam Martin. Makes sense, though. It's a great run by Dom Young, but they needed that much earlier. Much earlier. You got to give them credit. From 7th place to where they are now, it's an inspiration, but it's just not good enough to get the job done. And if you're not first, you're last in this sport. Yeah, that sums up pretty much how this game's gone for Newcastle. After the disappointing loss in the grand final, we'd run it back one more season, where we'd beat Penrith to go through to the next round against the Cowboys and hopefully get a berth in the final. But the Cowboys would beat us by 4 points, meaning Joey's time at Newcastle had come to an end. And just like that, the story of Andrew Johns comes to an end, one more time. He didn't win that fairy tale premiership everyone hoped for, but what he did leave behind was something even bigger. 5 premiership rings, 3 Dally M medals, and a legacy that never stopped growing, not even in this new reality. He inspired a generation the first time around, and somehow he did it again. Sometimes the story isn't about how it ends, it's about how much it meant along the way, because even when the boots finally come off, legends like Andrew Johns, they never really retire.